From their offices in Waxahachie, a group of professionals is engaged in a battle against child abuse. The team consists of an investigator from the district attorney's office, a forensic interviewer skilled in communicating with victimized children, a counselor specializing in domestic abuse, and an executive director who oversees the team and brings together the resources needed to keep their work progressing. These are the staff of the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to ending crimes against our children. To understand the scope of their work, consider the case of Haley, an elementary school student who lives near Red Oak. Haley has always been known as a bright and optimistic young girl who loves her family and friends dearly. Her teachers regarded her as a model student. Then suddenly, Haley changed. As if overnight, she became withdrawn. At times, she lashes out in hostility over small matters. Haley's mother assumed it was all just a phase of growing up, something that would pass soon. But Haley's teacher isn't convinced that such dramatic changes are normal. 6 weeks ago, she arranged for Haley to see the school counselor. At first, meetings with a school counselor appear unproductive as Haley has been reluctant to talk. Then one day, Haley begins to speak about her stepfather and how much she wishes her mother had never married him. A moment later, she makes a disturbing revelation. It was last winter, when the holiday break at school had just begun. Her mother had taken Haley's brother to do some Christmas shopping, so she had left her at home with her stepfather. Haley had been upstairs in her room while her stepfather was watching TV downstairs. After a while, she heard his footsteps coming up the stairs. For some reason, she grew frightened as he approached. Haley then recounts the graphic details of what happened to her that day. Upon this allegation of such a heinous crime, the counselor immediately notifies law enforcement. The local law enforcement investigator contacts the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center to schedule a forensic interview with Haley. As soon as Haley arrives at the center, also known as the Gingerbread House, the forensic interviewer puts Haley at ease and begins the interviewing process. In an adjacent room, members of a multidisciplinary team observe the interview via closed-circuit television. The forensic interviewer must arrive at the details that the team needs to evaluate the veracity of Haley's story. Therefore, she's careful not to ask leading questions. Her job is to remain neutral and allow the child to tell her story, to express her outcry. Furthermore, she attempts to mitigate the potentially adverse effects such an interview can have on traumatized victims who lack the coping skills to understand what they've experienced. The team in the next room will evaluate Haley's outcry. The group is usually composed of an agent with the Texas Department of Child Protective Services, a representative from the law enforcement agency with jurisdiction over the location of the alleged crime, an assistant district attorney, and an investigator from the district attorney's office. The forensic interviewer confers with the group, which allows the team to ask for more details that may help in their evaluation of Haley's outcry. They must determine if this story is a fabrication or if substantial evidence exists to continue with their investigation. Not every interview results in a case being filed. In Haley's case, they conclude that there's sufficient evidence to proceed with an investigation. They then proceed to get a warrant issued for the arrest of the stepfather. Because the team determines that Haley's mother was not aware of the situation, they ask her to meet them at the center. Once she arrives, the staff informs her of the matter. The family is shattered, destroyed by the criminal acts of a man who gained their trust and lived with them in their house. They will need help to begin to cope with what they've experienced. The center's staff counselor will help guide them through their recovery. Prosecution of the case is led by the lead investigator of the case, who immediately sets out to gather statements, forensic evidence, medical reports, and any other information that will help build the case as it proceeds to the trial date. In the courtroom, Haley will face the judge, a jury of 12 men and women, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and the face of the alleged perpetrator. The testimony she gives is imperative to putting a criminal behind bars. The center's staff will have acquainted Haley with the proceedings beforehand, being careful not to coach her testimony. For her, not only is the courtroom an intimidating environment, She'll also be forced to share with total strangers a litany of embarrassing details. What's more, she'll need to stand up against the scowls of the perpetrator and the brusque line of questioning of the defense attorney. It's an experience that no child should ever have to endure. Haley handles the stress well, and a verdict is ultimately reached. Guilty. The man who destroyed the life of an innocent child is immediately taken away. The family can now move on and continue the process of healing. Haley can return to being a child, growing up with normality. The team of the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center can close the files on Haley's case, but their work will not end. At any given moment, the center's team handles a full range of abuse cases. And for every case similar to Haley's that the team has undertaken, there are many more that have not yet been brought to light. Frequent headlines of the local papers reveal the scope of the threat the center faces. Some victims of abuse are found in time, with others, the torture they have endured is not discovered until time runs out for the victims. With every day that passes, these victims suffer physical and emotional harm. For the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center to get to them in time, to reach these victims before it's too late, the center needs your generous, tax-deductible gift. Help us be there when the next child cries out.